Hey everyone, my name's Christy. Welcome to my corner. Thank you for joining me today on this Flosstube Friday for Flosstube number 30, the big 3-0, which was a long time ago for me. But it's Flosstube number 30, which means that I've been doing this for 30 weeks, which I don't think is a round month number, so oh well. Anyway, I have a lot to talk about today. I had a really productive, crafty week. I reorganized some things, as I think you can see, and I did a new rebranding logo-y thing, which you've probably already seen in the thumbnail and the intro. So that's exciting. But before we get into all of that stuff, I want to welcome all my new subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me on my crafty and artistic adventures, and welcome back everyone who's been hanging out with me these past 30 weeks. It's been really great to get to know you in the comments here on YouTube and also on Instagram. And if you're not following me on Instagram, you can find me at Dr_Christy, and that's where I post pictures of stitching and crafting in progress. It's where I post pictures of baking that I don't film. So this week I posted pictures of bread and paper making and stitching. And so that's basically where I post my daily activities. So if you're interested in seeing what I do during the week, you can check me out at Dr_Christy. I would love to have you hang out with me over there as well. This is a channel about embroidery and cross stitch and other textile crafts and baking and history and the history of those things. So if any of that is interesting to you and you are not subscribed, I would love to have you subscribe and hang out with me. Yeah, lots of stuff happening today. So first of all, elephant in the room, my background has changed. Basically, I had some extra pegboard from this contraption. So this contraption here in the corner is actually freestanding. It's a really good way to use space if you can't drill into the walls. I live in a very old house. I guess not very old. It's old for US terms. But the walls are plaster, and so it's really difficult to mount things on the wall. And I figured instead of even trying, I would make a freestanding pegboard storage situation. So that's what this is. And I had a little pegboard left over that had just been kind of sitting leaning against the wall, because where am I going to put a big old thing of pegboard? And I decided that I never use this window. So this back here is a window that I never open. I figured, why not just add more pegboard to my system, hang light things on it, because it would really only be attached to this thing because I can't mount it, and have kind of a nice little thing. So I'm going to tilt you up so you can see. It goes all the way up, and I have all my some of my hoops and stuff up there. So that's really fun. And it's really nice because my work desk is right there. So it's really nice to kind of look over and see my pieces that I do. Anyway, so that's changed. And then I also during the week kind of finalized my logo, which is based on this stitched piece here. And I love it. And I rebranded some of my patterns, which I'll talk about later. Anyway. And then I did tons of stitching, and I made paper, and it's been a week. Now, I would like to say that I'm very hopeful that I'll be able to have a full video here, because I got my first COVID vaccine shot yesterday, and I've been feeling kind of low-grade nausea all day. So I'm hoping that I feel okay throughout this whole video. So far, I'm feeling pretty good. I seem to feel better when I'm sitting, so that helps. And it's getting better. We'll see. I'll go as long as I can go and as much as I have to say, and then I'll stop when I don't. But we're 4.5 minutes in, and I haven't gotten any stitching yet. So I have some FFOs. I have an FO, a fully finished object, a finished object. I have a bunch of WIPs, works in progress. I have haul. So basically everything I've bought in the past month and a half came in this week. So I have a lot of haul. And then I have a bunch of plans. So I'm pretty excited. So let's dig in. Let's talk FFOs first. If you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen that I fully finished my Amanda Gorman Be Brave piece. I also released this as an embroidery pattern on my Etsy shop. And that's what the front page looks like. And that's my new logo, which looks just like my my stitch piece. And I just did something sort of modern and simple, but I think it's really effective and I think it looks really good and professional. Those of you who've been with me since since Christmas at least, know that I hadn't actually planned on like releasing patterns at that point, and it all kind of happened because of that temperature library pattern. And I kind of threw something together as quickly as I could that looked pretty good. I mean, it looked okay considering, you know, we kind of like, one week we're like, okay, I will do this for you all. And then the next week I was like, okay, guys, I've done this for you all. So it's nice to have a logo kind of style that is flexible and can be used in multiple different places. It's also my picture on YouTube. And so I don't know. So I'm going to be slowly kind of rebranding everything now that I apparently have a brand. I unexpectedly have a brand, so I should brand it. This is going to be taken to my university library because they're doing an exhibit of, I may have said this last week, they're doing a show of faculty and staff artwork during COVID. And then if you want to donate your artwork, it will be auctioned off to support the Student Emergency Fund that helps students who have like a medical bill they have to pay, or a flat tire, or you know, a phone bill that they can't pay, you know, that kind of a thing. So I'm going to donate this to the university to auction off to raise money for that. So, but it's done and I love it. And I'll just put a little bow there and it'll be perfect. So that is my FFO. My finished object relates to this pile of paper. I made paper yesterday. I took some, basically, it was just the packing material that I've been kind of collecting for months. Like the paper that things are wrapped in and some tissue paper and that kind of a thing. And I soaked it in water for 2 days and then I blended it and I made paper out of it. And it's not like great paper. It's the first time I've ever made paper. It's not smooth. It's very kind of chunky and it's not even. But it's paper and it's the first time I've ever made paper. And I made it using like a homemade mold and decal. Like, I mean, this was totally just thrown together, just something that I'd been thinking about for a while. Now, this paper isn't really good for much because it doesn't have any sizing on it, which means that if you do anything on it, it'll just like absorb it and like spread it out. There's no like surface on this at all. But I didn't make paper to write on. I made paper to stitch on, and I did. So my finished object is lavender stitch onto my paper. And I think it's really sweet. And for my first time doing it, I think it's actually really, really nice. And I'm really pleased with it. I used 2 colors on this. Both of them are DeVere yarns, cotton, plum and fern, which I think worked really well together. I did a lazy daisy for the petals, for the flower petals. Normally I would do a bullion knot, but I didn't know if the paper could handle it. And it was like my first time doing it on paper. So I thought I would just go with a lazy daisy. That's easy. And I am really, really pleased with it. Like really pleased with it. It's just so sweet, right? Like, could you imagine that on like in just a frame? I don't know. You all think this is sweet too, right? Like, I just think it's just this like sweet little stitch. That's my finished object and I'm really pleased with it. That and my paper. My paper's finished too. So that's my finished object. And I think that's everything that I finished this week. So that's pretty good. So let's talk about works in progress. I've basically touched all my normal pieces for the week, but I'm most excited about Hildegard. Wait until you see Hildegard of Bingen's Cosmic Egg. So if you're new here, I have been working on Hildegard of Bingen's Cosmic Egg. I'll put a picture of it right here. And also, I also recorded a video about it, which I'll also put up here. Hildegard of Bingen was a 12th century nun who had visions, and she was really amazing. And one of her visions was of the universe. And that's what this is. That's what this picture is the universe. Here's a picture of where it was last time you saw it. Okay. And here it is now. I painted the outside blue part on the top, and then I filled in some of the flames on the top, and I'm starting on the sun. And I am loving it. Adding the paint made such a huge difference to the piece. Like an unbelievable difference. This sort of empty square here is going to be gold leaf, and I kind of forgot when I was painting, and so I painted it in here. But I think it'll be okay when I gold leaf it. But I am so pleased with this. And that yellow is moving so quickly. The yellow I'm doing in long and short stitches. So it's very quick. I'm so pleased with it. Like just doing that painting made such a huge difference. So that is my Hildegard of Bingen Cosmic Egg. And I am completely thrilled with it. Completely and utterly thrilled. And that is stitched in all sorts of different things. The blue is watercolor, and then it's stitched on a cotton linen blend fabric from Fat Quarter Shop, just yardage. And the colors were chosen by color as opposed to like designer or dyer. So they're all different colors in there. The next stitch that I did, which I do every week, is my temperature bookcase that I'm doing in embroidery. And so this is where we are. I finished up with February with my mom. And it's so funny, like I added in a new color right here. I added in the DMC white etoile to account for temperatures below freezing, when the high temperature is below freezing. We almost never have high temperatures below freezing. So I was not expecting that. And so I added that in just for fun. That was during that cold snap last week when all this stuff happened in Texas. We had a similar situation here in Mississippi, although it wasn't as extensive. But yeah, so I put that in. And then greens are like 70s, and that was 81 degrees. That yellow, 81 degrees. So 28, 81. Mississippi is basically the perfect place to live for a temperature pattern. Because look at that wild color variation. This is looking pretty good. I do need to definitely do more work on the actual bookcase. I have not been putting any work into this except filling in the books on Sundays with my mom when I do stitching with my mom. I need to work on that. And that is in my book bag. This is participating in a stitch along, a SAL, and the hashtag for that is Stitch the Temp Sal. I'll put that here, and that's on Instagram. And there is, if you're interested in stitching that pattern, you can find it on my Etsy shop, which I have linked down below. I have an embroidery version and I have a cross stitch version. I've also been, I think I've worked on this since I saw you. Either way, I am trucking along with my Harpy, and this is another one of my cross stitch patterns called the Dragon and the Harpy 1596, and this is based on a lace pattern, a German lace pattern from 1596 that is housed in a pattern book at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And so I charted this also. You can also find this on my Etsy shop, and it's going really well. And what I'm finding is that I like stitching in hand. I like using the sewing method. I like stitching in hand. And I think it looks pretty good considering this is my first big cross stitch piece that I've ever done in my life. And if you notice, the only reason why I can do cross stitch, because I have trouble counting. I struggle counting objects, which I've mentioned numerous times before, and which is why I had never cross stitched before. But what I found is that if I mark off my fabric every 5 squares, I can do it. So 5 squares, I can do it. I can also do it. Pattern Keeper makes a huge difference. I know most people use Pattern Keeper for full coverages. I use it for everything. Like I think it's kind of the only way that I can do it. So this is also on my Etsy shop if you're interested. And here's a picture of the full thing. It's the Dragon and the Harpy. and they're kind of facing each other. There are other patterns like this that I want to chart in the next few months, so keep an eye out for those. The next one is going to be deer, red deer. One of them standing, one of them's lying. They have antlers and stuff, and that is in the works. We'll say that it's in the works. I'm making progress. But this is my Dragon and Harpy 1596. I also worked on my Peppermint Purple Blackwork stitch along this week, and I think I'm about 2 weeks behind now. I think week 9 just dropped, and I finished week 7. So this is where I am. This is on a 14 count black Aida, and the variegated is BeStitch Me Happy, and the green is an unnamed Dying for Cross Stitch silk that was released at Halloween. It was like a Halloween pack. And I really love doing this. It's really, blackwork to me is really very fun. So I'm really pleased with this. I'm really pleased with how it's turning out. The next one is going here, and then I think here. So I'm going there next, but I love it. And it's so bright and so cheerful. And the fluorescent on the black just feels very 80s to me. As someone who, like I said, hit the big 3-0 many years ago, I appreciate some throwbacks to the 80s. Since now we're throwing back to the 90s, and I don't understand how you can throw back to a decade that was only 3 or 4 years ago, right? I mean, the 90s were only 3 or 4 years ago. So my sister-in-law, sorry, it's story time. My sister-in-law posted on Instagram that The Wonder Years, which was a show that I used to watch in the 80s and early 90s, and it was filmed in 1988. I think it launched in 1988. It was basically a guy talking about his childhood in the 60s, and it took place in 1968. As a child, you know, I remember the show, but I was a kid, and 1968 seemed really, really long ago, right? As a kid, I was 8, and when it started. And her post said that if The Wonder Years were filmed now, it would be about 2001. I told her to shut her mouth because that is absurd. Because 2001 was not a long time ago, and I remember it vividly. Anyway, it blew my mind. I'm like, I can't. Like, I graduated from college in 2001. Seriously. I just can't. I can't with the time passing and the getting old. Anyway, if The Wonder Years were filmed now, it would be taking place in 2001. I don't know if I'm going to keep that story in here. It just crossed my mind and made me, I don't know why I thought about it. Oh, the 80s. But oh man, when she said that, it blew my mind. Okay. Onward and upward. Those are all my whips. Let's talk about haul, and then we'll talk about plans because they're kind of intertwined. So I got some fabric. I got more, speaking of the 80s, I got more Bob Ross fabric, more Bob Ross face fabric. Because I used the other ones to make scarves, although I haven't made my second scarf yet, but I do want to make project bags out of this. So this is my Bob Ross for project bags. I got this honeycomb fabric because I thought it would make a really good project bag with this bee fabric that I already had. Now, I would like your opinion. If you were to get a project bag with these two fabrics, which one would you want on the outside and which one on the inside? What is your opinion? Because I can't decide. Bees, and it says bumblebee. Bees on the outside or bees on the inside? And then I got this panel. It's a quilt panel. I love quilt panels because quilt panels are often like digitally printed and they're really cool. So I got, speaking of lavender from my stitch, I got this lavender field. I hope you can see it. panel, lavender field panel. I kind of want to cut this into pieces and make project bags out of it. That's all from Fat Quarter Shop, and so is this. I got some cross-stitch needles, some nice cross-stitch needles. The only cross-stitch needles that I had previously I got from Michaels, and they're DMC. And I don't love DMC needles. They're good enough, but I don't love them. I don't love them. So I got two different kinds of needles. Both of them are from Japan. This one is the tulip needle. I really like tulip embroidery needles, so I figured I might as well try tulip tapestry or cross stitch needles. They're round tips and they're not cheap. In the scheme of crafting items, they're cheap, but in the scheme of needles, they're not cheap. They're probably $9 for that thing of needles, 6 needles in it. So that's a lot of money for needles, but I really love tulip needles. And then I got Cosmo needles, like the Floss, Lucian Cosmo. I didn't know that they made needles. And so I got two different kinds, 2 different sizes. Oh, I got a very multi-pack. Sorry for the glare. And then I got a less multi-pack. So I'll try them out, see if I like them. I'm sure I will. I'm sure they're excellent needles. I also got my BeStitch Me Silks of the Month for February, which are an excellent bunch of reds, which is cool because as I was kind of organizing this behind me, these are my silks up here, and I noticed that I don't have very many reds. So now I have lots of reds. I have Red Barn, and this is all from BeStitch Me. There we go. Red Barn. Sangria. Poppy, which is a very pinky red. Vampire Kiss. And Red Velvet, which is, oh yeah, which is the pinkiest of the reds and is more, it's not quite as pink. It's coming very pink on the camera. It's not that pink. It's a reddish pink. So I got all of those. I got a book, Mary Thomas's Dictionary of Embroidery Stitches. The Classic Guide to, I can't read backwards, The Classic Guide revised by Jen Eaton. And so this basically is literally the dictionary of stitches. You have filling stitches, open filling stitches, closed filling stitches, composite band stitches, right? So this has all sorts of different stitches that I can play around with. And I think it'll go nicely with my book of embroidery over here that I want to try when I have a moment that my fiance got me for Christmas that I'm really excited about. And now my books are here, and so those are an easy access to, which is nice in my reorganization. Anyway, but our mail person bent this in half and shoved it in the mailbox. So my back cover is all bent and broken. They broke my back cover. I'm so sad. Anyway, the stitches will still be fine. It'll still be fine, but I don't like a broken cover. So there's that. And then the big one that I've been waiting for a month and a half is I got a big order from Woolery.com. Those of you who've been with me for a while know that the reason I started embroidering in the first place was because I wanted to embroider images from the Bayou Tapestry. You can see one right here. There's one right here. Actually, let me just get it down. So this is one of the images that I really love from the Bayou Tapestry. And the Bayou Tapestry, I did a Bayou Tapestry video, like my 2nd or 3rd video. I'll post a link to it up here. Basically, it's a 70-meter long embroidery piece that was done in about 1077 to commemorate the conquest of England by William the Conqueror, which happened in 1066. And I love this piece so much. And I have made versions of this. This is the death of King Harold. So this is at the Battle of Hastings, the death of King Harold. And it says, Harold Rex interfectus est. King Harold is killed or is dead. I've been wanting to recreate this in wool, but wool embroidery floss is very expensive. And so I was trying to find alternatives to wool embroidery floss. And what I discovered is that Borg's Mora lace wool. So here is, the green is the Borg's Mora, and the black is 1 strand of DMC. So this is, I would say, 1.5 strands of DMC. Now I have a bunch of this that is ready to dye, and that's kind of what I'm playing around with for my dyeing going forward. But what I want to do is start stitching up my pieces before I figure out my dyeing. So I bought all the colors that are in the Bayou Tapestry. I bought this like minty color. I have a dark blue. I have a natural. I have a gray. I have this mustard yellow or gold. I have black. And then I have 2 reds. I have an orangey red and I have a more burgundy red. And they're very close. They're actually closer than I thought they were going to be. But this one here is the orangey red and this one here is the burgundy red, which is also looking more pink for me. I'm going to use them anyway, but this is not quite as burgundy as I was hoping. I didn't want it like this burgundy, but I wanted it a little more burgundy. So those are the colors that I have of this Borg's Mora. And that brings me to plans, because as those of you who have been with me know, I made these linen scarves and I am stitching tiny little archers from the Bayou Tapestry on them. I had planned on doing it with this yarn from Woolery.com, but it just like didn't come in. One of the colors was back ordered, so I just switched it with a different color. So I'd been doing it with the DeVere Yarns wool. Well, I didn't have all the colors I needed, so I kind of made do. I didn't love it. And it looks okay, but I don't love it. And I also am feeling like I wanted it a little bit bigger. I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff about this that I'm not super thrilled with. So I think what I might do is restart. I've only done 1 archer, and I think I'm going to restart it with the yarn that I had intended to do it with, now that it's here. And I think I'm going to start that this week. So I think what I'm going to do is grab another one of the scarves that I made, blow up the picture a bit, make it a little bit bigger, or blow up the archers a little bit, make them a little bit bigger, and stitch them with the new yarn that I just got. That's the colors that I want, and that will make me very happy. So that's one of my plans, is to restart my archer scarf with the yarns that I got to do my archer scarf. I also want to work on all my other things. That's my plan as well. I said last week that I was feeling really like stressed out about like just feeling COVID fatigue. Like I was just like really exhausted and my sense of time was all messed up. And so I did a lot of things this week to kind of fix that. I worked on things that I had been planning on doing so that I could feel like I accomplished something. So like this in the background I did. I took down my Christmas stuff, which I had left up because I thought that the lights and stuff were bringing me joy. But I realized that I was feeling crowded and there was just a lot of stuff. And so I took that down, and so that felt really good. I accomplished that. I made paper, which I'd been planning on doing for a while, so I accomplished that. I also gave my students a spring break. We don't have spring break in my university this semester because we don't want the students to like go on spring break, get sick, and come back and bring it back. Like we want to keep them here and just like finish out the semester as healthy as we all can be. But spring break is there for a reason. Like, spring break is there because we need a break in the middle of this spring. For my upper level classes, I teach 2 300 level classes, and I'm giving both of them a spring break. I can't give my lower level class a spring break. We just don't have enough time to cover everything because it's also a shortened semester. But I was able to give my upper level classes a spring break, which is also giving me a spring break. So like, I'm not taking off, but I've been sitting at about 2 days behind every week in those 2 classes. And my hope is that if I do the work I normally do next week, I will be 5 days ahead. And maybe that will help bring me joy as well. But I think I'll also be able to work on lots of stitching and crafting next week. Probably stitching next week. I don't think I'm going to make any more paper or anything like that. Oh, I do want to hold that thought. I have been thinking that I want to make this into a pillow. This is my Scandinavian needle felted deer that I did. And I want to wet felt this so I can turn it into a pillow and it'll be very secure. So I might wet felt this next week. And then I've also been thinking that I would like to do some more sewing and maybe make some project bags. So those are the things that I am planning at the moment. It's a lot and I probably won't get half of it done, but I like having lots of options so that way I have more things that I can choose from. I think I'm going to end it there. It's been great spending time with you. I'm actually feeling pretty okay, so I think I'll be able to edit this and get this posted tonight. And with all that being said, please take good care of yourselves and have a good one. Bye.